remember it. What a woos. I tell you what, it'd be a dangerous place if he came down my street. I'd have him. Not in that way either. Welcome back to Monday's show with me, Kay Adams, with Amanda Lamb, Jeremy Edwards and special guest Sophia Miles. Catch Sophia in Utopia at London's Soho Theatre until the 14th of July. Coming up soonish, is it time to chuck the chuggers? An undercover investigation by the Sunday Telegraph allegedly revealed some less than scrupulous practices by one organisation, and 1 in 7 councils says they'd like to see them banned. Do you feel any more charitable towards them? Go to 071 173 5555 is the number you need. But first, the papers. What do we have? What do we have making the headlines today, Sophia?
Well, first up, The Sun is suggesting that we all watched Wimbledon. Because unfortunately we lost the football last night to Italy.
No!
I know, and I hate to break it to you, but yes, so they're trying to be optimistic and say, well, anyone for tennis.
Did you watch the match last night?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a plane, so I genuinely didn't see it. I found out the result when I landed. Yeah. Was it excruciating?
It was a great match, you know. It's such a shame. I always think penalties are very unfair. Way to kind of do it, and especially after they, you know, after half an hour of extra time, they just all of them look absolutely knackered. But
Jeremy, are you watching?
I did watch it, yes, and I'm afraid. I mean, honestly, Italy deserved to win. I'm an England supporter, I really am. But they were all over us towards the end of it. We were lucky to get to penalties, so it was the fairest result. I know people will hate me saying that, but it really was. They were the better team. We were pretty. Everyone did look exhausted. Our team didn't look that fit towards the end. To be honest, they were still going. They were running around like madmen.
But I mean, from what I read, they kind of did themselves proud. Didn't make a disgrace of themselves. No, but I mean, was it the World Cup? Then they didn't particularly cover themselves in glory, and there was a kind of feeling that they weren't the most united
We defended
team,
incredibly well. Our defence were fantastic. We just couldn't score. Our attack was rubbish.
I think I've probably gone as far as I can discussing England now.
But thank you for feigning interest.
No, I'm interested. I mean, you know, Scotland hasn't been in a major tournament since 1914. You know, I'm a UN observer here, but we do have Wimbledon coming up, and I am prepared for a lot of slagging over Andy Murray. So, you know, I'm just putting my little force shield up here. He doesn't play till tomorrow. Oh, actually, we've almost got another Scottish story. RBS is cocking it up again. What's happening with that?
Yeah, the Telegraph just reporting the fury as RBS bank glitch drags on. There's been a problem with their computer system, I believe, and so lots of people's money and mortgages haven't been paid properly, so...
And I think they had the branches open, a lot of branches were open all weekend, and Stephen Hester, the chief executive, is absolutely bending over backwards. Funny, I logged on to my account, as I do every night. I didn't see any difference, actually. It was still lots of zeros. And it started with a zero as well. And there was this, you know, great sort of phoning apology from him. We're terribly, terribly sorry. We're doing our very best. Because PR-wise, my God, they're up against it, aren't they?
It does worry me, though. I'm so old-fashioned. I still love a checkbook, and I still love speaking to somebody on a phone or going into a bank. This whole putting your money into a computer system and just letting somebody in charge of it does scare me. When I have to pay that god-awful VAT bill, I have to do that online now, and I just think to myself, I much preferred writing a cheque and sending it off. So old.
Yeah, well, no. But apparently it's an 0845 number that they're giving out to help people, and you've got to pay for that.
And they're making money from that.
Yeah.
Cheeky. Next, war medals. This is in the Mirror. RGs could ruin Olympics with protests.
Well, this is the Argentinians, RGs.
The Olympics may be used as a platform for protest over the Falklands, intelligence agents have warned. Well, look, I really have no... This is speculation. I don't really know what they're on about. Do you know what this is about?
Well, they'll end up... I mean, if it's not the Argentinians, it'll be somebody else. But I'm sure there's going to be a myriad of protests going on.
But isn't it interesting, that picture in the Mirror that's just gone down? Is that Maradona they've got doing the hand? I mean, what relevance does that have?
Well, they'll just keep using that forever, that picture.
Trying to stir up bad feeling towards the Argentinians,
it's only going to stoke up bad feeling.
That's all it is, yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Insane.
Yeah. So what else have we got?
Next up, in the Daily Telegraph, health warning to women over their expanding waistline. So no warning to the men that are also getting fat. I mean, look, we all know that if we get too fat, it's not good for us. So I don't really know why this is news, but
Well, I think weight that comes
It's
around
it's
the
especially
waist.
dangerous, apparently, for women that if you store it round your middle. But
So instead of pears, we're now becoming apples. I mean, just wee fat barrels, basically.
Well,
and they've got it in centimetres, and I don't know what centimetres. I'm that old as well.
Yeah.
I think it's like 87 centimetres is the average.
3.5 inches.
So it's got to be less than that.
33.5 inches, it says there, yeah.
That's why I've got an elasticated dress on today.
Any number of inches you fancy there, yeah. Yeah, we're not doing particularly well on that, is it? But I was reading something else this morning, actually. It was about a lot of the diet foods that are on offer. And, of course, women are very tempted by these low-fat things. But they're very high sugar, which is a real problem, and high salt. Yeah. But high
I think it is as well.
Yes, Sophia. I love the way she put her hand up.
Miss, Miles. When I spent a lot of time in America, and there's a lot more sugar in American food. And if you notice, the American, everything gets stored around the middle. And I think you're right, it is sugar, but also because of the hormones that are put into so many, that are pumped into animals. I think that half the food that we eat is making us get fatter because of all of the stuff that they're pumping into the animals to begin with, plus the sugar, in the food.
I mean, well, there's a real science to it, isn't it? I mean, cornstarch came out of America in the 50s, and that was just made to build people's appetite.
And I read somewhere that stress it produces a hormone, cortisol, that's it, and that goes all around a woman's waist as well.
Is that
Let's
what
just blame
happens?
everything other than the fact that we're eating too much.
What else do we have?
Next one, and then this is in the Daily Star.
Oh, brilliant.
Ross Kemp.
The big whoosh.
I've been to the world's danger zones, and Glasgow is top.
Let me see that. Let me see that. What's this man going on about? Oh, the foam in his cappuccino was too hot. My goodness. What's he talking? He compares it to Venezuela, where murder and kidnapping are out of control. God almighty.
It's not that
There's
bad,
a woman I met in Glasgow who tells me that when she was 9, she was injected with heroin by her uncle. I mean, gosh, there is some really, really dreadful deprivation in Glasgow. There certainly is, as there is in many of our other cities, isn't there? I mean, I know they've picked out, but it just doesn't help. It doesn't help any city's image, because actually it is not a reflection of Glasgow.
No.
But anyway, I'm being defensive now, aren't I? I am being defensive. Ross, you are a woos. That's my final word on it, frankly. What have you got?
My first story is from The Guardian. This is Alexander. This is Danny Alexander, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, of course, as we all know. He's saying that the tax avoidance if you clamp down, you could cut 2p, off the basic rate of tax. Yeah. And that's just by cutting it down by a quarter. Ergo, 8% if you got rid of the whole thing, which is quite amazing.
To get back having his little spat at Jimmy Carr and them thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to open a real big can of worms here, and they're trying to bring it back to, not personalising it, aren't they?
Well, I kind of agree with him on that. He does say that he thinks that it was bad of Cameron to personalise it and to pick on certain people, because there are lots of people doing it. And, and I don't agree with Cameron jumping on that bandwagon, just basically trying to apportion blame towards a comedian and a pop star because it takes the eyes off him and then on his banking
Yeah, well, he
buddies.
hasn't done it towards the pop star, because the pop star happens to be a Tory party supporter, so he's kind of taken the heat off.
But, so I don't agree with that. But, I mean, come on. It's good. If anything, it's just, at least it's flagged up the problem, and let's do something about it, and let's get rid of this loophole. Or at least, if they'd like to reduce it by 25%.
But I have to say, what I think is interesting about this is here he is saying now, OK, if we cut these loopholes, then we're all going to benefit because we can take 2p off the basic rate. But only at the budget recently, George Osborne was cut the 50p rate of tax, but because he says the thing about the rich is they won't pay it. Yeah. So on the one hand, they kind of conceived that the rich will always find ways around paying their tax. And now here he's saying, well, if we manage to make them pay their tax, then we'll all benefit. So there's a real contradiction there.
But I mean, there are some people that do pay it, rich people that do pay it, and I do think there is some credence to the idea that if you bring the 50% rate down slightly, it will encourage people to stay in the country and to not move their money offshore. There are, like Michael Caine famously always pays, and Elton John. These people, they refuse to. They say, no, I want to give back to the country, and that they should be admired. And I think you could bring it down a bit, and you might actually get people. Otherwise, they'll just end up paying 1%, and then no one gets anything, do they?
Yeah, that is their argument. But the ingenuity of accountants, I suspect, will always outfox the politicians, even just in how quickly they can move. You know?
Right, sorry. Anyway, my next story is in the Telegraph. This is fantastic. Police haul missing pupils from their beds in drive to cut truancy.
I love this, actually.
Yeah, because legally your kids have got to stay in school till they're 16. So what they're doing is, they're going round, if your kids haven't turned up to school, they're going round to the parents' houses and they're dragging them out of bed. Good. Taking them into school in their Buzz Lightyear pyjamas, the lot. And they've got to sit there for the whole day in their dressing gown, no breakfast. No,
and that's just the teachers.
That's just it's really working because it embarrasses the parents, because it's the parents, you see, who should be getting them out of bed, and they are so embarrassed that apparently it only ever happens once, and that's it, then they're out, that's it.
I must admit, I'm surprised they have the police resources to do it, but, you know, if it's working...
Yeah, but if it's working, think of the time it will save in the long run, because if this only takes this one short, sharp shock, as it were, to get them to play ball and to turn up to school, then you don't have to bother... you know, chasing them again, otherwise...
I must admit, there's something very appealing about it, isn't it? Because we often get locked up and you can't do that because you might offend them and that might be difficult, whatever. But actually, if you're a 14-year-old lying in your kip when you should be at school, then actually you do need somebody just to grab you and say, no, mate, get to school.
It would be quite scary as well, wouldn't it, be working up? Do you think they use those things to smash the door in? Because that would be ace, wouldn't it? I'm getting carried away.
You are.
Right, sorry. That's what I'd do. But anyway...
Come back, Charlie, come back to Uncle Jeremy.
My next story is from The Guardian, and this is UK's biggest funeral firm filmed stacking bodies like TV sets. This is horrendous. This is the Cooperative Funeral Care, which organises more than 100,000 funerals a year, have basically been accused of, or have been filmed on a Dispatches documentary saying that they've been storing bodies in hubs, in these industrial-type premises. And what they do is when people want to go and visit the body, they then drive them back to the funeral home and make it look like they've all been kept in a nice environment, really when actually they've been alleged... I mean, I don't know if I can say whatever, but they've got pictures of coffins stacked up. And the idea
it's horrendous. I mean, the cooperative themselves say that they are going to investigate it and they're going to launch their own inquiry, which is what you would expect. There's a tiny bit of me thinks maybe there's some things that we shouldn't see.
You know, I'm with you. My grandmother, we used the co-op when both of my grandparents passed away, and I remember going to the Chapel of Rest to say goodbye to them, and I remember thinking when they, you know, when you go into that room and they're laid out and things, and I remember thinking, I wonder where she was before here. I wonder what is behind that door. And then I thought, I don't want to know. I'll just say goodbye to her and leave. And I don't think I want to know what's behind there. And I think that's awful. But I think if you start delving into things like that, you know, what if you die in hospital and you get put in a mortuary?
Well, you're in a morgue or whatever, you know, it's just...
But we do kind of know, don't we, that...
we do, but
you know, behind closed doors, there's black humour that goes on, there's all sorts of stuff that clearly, if it was a relative of yours, you would be utterly devastated. But at the end of the day, it is part of the life process, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll see what comes out of their inquiry.
Indeed. And my next story is from The Mirror, and this is Mr. Big Mistake. This is to do with the drugs problem in Mexico. It's huge, and they were all rejoicing and parading that this leader of a cartel that they'd found called Joaquin Shorty Guzman. Apparently. And it turned out, so they did all this thing on the TV, and the pictures of him with the guns as well, firearms and cash that they found with him. Except it wasn't him, it was a car dealer called Felix Beltran, who's completely innocent. Or if there is such a thing as an innocent car dealer, I don't know.
Why was he saying I didn't do it then? What was he doing just...
Well, I don't know. It's all a bit dodgy, isn't it?
They wouldn't get away with that on crime watch, would they?
These policemen possibly aren't...
Guns in his bag.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but they grab some guy and say, look, we've caught this guy, as if to make a big sort of public show of him, and it turns out it's not the right person. And then so the US police are blaming the Mexican police, and the Mexican police are blaming the US police, but it's all a bit of a...
Maybe he sold one of them a dodgy car and they thought,
I think maybe
and I bet his kids are in bed in the morning, so I'll get them out at the same time.
Exactly. So there we go. And my final story is in the Daily Mail. This is no more carrots, bugs. They're bad for your teeth. Apparently, carrots are bad for rabbits' teeth. And people have been, because they watch Bugs Bunny, they've been feeding their rabbits carrots, when actually there's a lot of sugar in carrots, as we all know.
I don't think I did know that.
It's very bad.
I just thought it made you see better in the dark.
It's very bad for you. But I like this. The RSPCA scientist Rachel Roxburgh says, but here's a cartoon. Real rabbits don't talk, and they shouldn't be eating carrots too. And I can't agree. Real rabbits do not talk.
What should they be eating then? You can't give your rabbit a carrot.
I've got two
grass and hay.
Oh, hang on. We've got a rabbit expert at the end of the
table. Do you know
table.
what? I tell you what wasn't safe for my rabbits this morning. I opened up the curtains and I saw the little swines had got out of the hutch and they were running around the garden. So there's me in my pyjamas at 6:30 this morning trying to catch bongo and lettuce. That wasn't good for them. And they're supposed to just have pellets.
No,
things.
hay and grass.
Hay and grass and
RSPCA.
pellets that you buy.
I bet you're a carrot feeder, aren't you?
No. I did chuck them a bit of cabbage last night, actually.
Did you?
Cabbage can cause gas in the stomach.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, lettuce isn't good either. I'm still savouring the moment of you and your nightie going, bongo!
Honestly, seriously.
Lettuce!
Blighters? I won't swear on national television, but they were in trouble this morning. My own fault for leaving the cage open, but still.
Bongo, you're a naughty bunny. What have
Very
you got?
naughty. Scots set to tax plastic bags, but England still holds back. Scotland are having a little chat about whether they're going to start charging for carrier bags. Northern Ireland have already done will have introduced it next year. Wales have implemented it in October, and since they've done it, the carrier bag usage has dropped by 90%.
Wow.
We're the only country at the moment that aren't even thinking about doing it. I know M&S charge 5p a bag now.
Yeah, and I think that's the rate that they're proposing in Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah, but you see, I think I don't know about the rest of you, but I have so many bags for life in my cupboard, and every time I go to the supermarket, I go, have another bag, please. So I think I'm going to try and invent a bag within a bag that I can just take with me everywhere, because it is awful, and I hate using carrier bags, and I hate seeing them. It says here that plastic bags are often used for just 20 minutes, but they take up to 1,000 years to rot away, which litters the landscape and causes devastation. And I think that it's gone up last year. Our use of carrier bags has gone up by 333 million on the year before. We use 6.4 billion of them every year.
It's just a habit, isn't it? I mean, it's just getting in the habit of having them with you.
But also, it's like if I go shopping, I'll go and do lots of other shops before I hit the supermarket. So I don't want to carry around, 18 bags for life before I get there.
They've made these shopping trolleys trendy now. You see,
Maybe
trendy
I'll
ones. Get one of those, definitely. You can keep bongo and lettuce in it just to make sure they're all right.
Bongo and lettuce are going somewhere in a minute. They've got to go to the vets tonight to have their jabs. Anyway, time to move on. Daily
Will they
Mail.
wake up in the morning, Amanda?
Maybe not.
Oh!
My next story is in the Daily Mail as well. It'd be interesting to see what you guys think of this. The Downing Street divorce app to help couples through a breakup. We're talking about how the fact we don't have any money in this country. They're now thinking about a £14 million scheme that you can have a downloadable app or widget for divorcing parents. So it will do things like it'll give you advice on how to avoid arguments, sorting out child support, how to cope with meeting an ex-partner's new boyfriend or girlfriend. And I think all of that, in theory, is a good idea until you obviously get hold of your app and bash the new person over the head with it. I think there are booklets, there are solicitors that you can go to.
Is there a game that comes with it as well? No, because that'd be really good, wouldn't it? If, like,
This is what happens if... in theory, it's a good idea, and I think the more information you can have if you are thinking of going through that.
The thing I like about it, I mean, it's tempting to think, oh, my God, 40 million quid on this, but if it focuses parents who are splitting up on their children and how it can affect their children and how their behaviour can affect their children and just lodges that in their head, then I think it'd be very valuable because, as an adult in that situation, you can kind of think it's all about you and him or her or whatever. Yeah. But it's often the children that really do
absolutely.
suffer.
I think any information that you can gather and you can get that will make you maybe think twice about it or maybe work a bit harder on it is a good thing. Yeah. But I think the practice and the theory are two very different.
Very different things.
Yes. This is in the Metro. Saudi women are finally given an Olympic ticket. Saudi Arabian women will be permitted to compete in the Olympics for the first time in a last-minute U-turn. I don't know how many days we've got left of the Olympics.
40 or something?
40 or something. IOC rules state that any discrimination with regards to a person on the grounds of race, religion, sex or otherwise is incompatible with the Olympic movement. It's an interesting one because it's so fiercely opposed in Saudi Arabia that the majority of the women have never been given the opportunity to train. So they say that
there's only one.
There's one Saudi female competitor in London 2012. It's a show jumper. So I'm backing her.
Yeah, but it is a really important thing for these countries where women just are not encouraged to exercise and they don't have the opportunity to exercise. And, you know, clearly for health reasons, it's very important that they do.
So and opening up
these little things can make such a big difference.
And, who knows? I mean, you know, you visions in, you know, a few decades' time when our children are watching it and you have Saudi Arabian sprinters or competitors, you can say, I can remember when they weren't even allowed there. So I think it's a great thing.
Our memory will be shot by then, Amanda. We'll never remember.
Gin-addled brains.
I remember something.
But this is something that I think we should try and do on this programme this week. This is in the Daily Mirror, Wildlife on Mars. The Springwatch presenter, Chris Packham, has somehow managed to sneak 49 David Bowie song and album titles into just one series of the hit BBC Two programme. Music fans were delighted by his secret game, so he'd be doing pieces to camera and then he'd just slip in. And some of them
in conversation?
In conversation.
Go on, give us one then. Have you got one?
I mean, Signet Committee, Aladdin Sane, Watch That Man, Scary Monsters, Be My Wife, The Prettiest Star. I mean, there's some pretty... Who should we choose? What band should we choose to try and get in?
The Bay City Rollers?
I know. I don't know any of the stuff they've done.
You can get Shang-a-Lang in anywhere. It's absolutely fine. It's, you know...
So, OK, well, this...
I think he should change his jobs. He's clearly bored.
This next story is in the Daily Shang-a-Lang.
Yeah, great. Well done. That was seamless.
I love this story, and I can so relate to this. Toddler's energy equals 83 rounds for an adult in a boxing ring. Oh. It will come as no surprise to parents of toddlers that the daily energy expended by a toddler is equivalent to 83 rounds in a boxing ring. Children under the age of 5, it's also the equivalent of an adult running... The amount of energy that they use up in a day is the equivalent to an adult running 30 miles, cycling 86 miles, rowing for 6 hours or taking part in 300 hours of football. It's incredible, isn't it? Because I watch my daughter...
I know, little Shang-a-Lang.
Little Shang-a-Lang, who's 3.5.
Should we not be harnessing this energy, like putting them on treadmills?
Putting them on a treadmill.
Think about it.
Got kids.
Forget wind turbines. Get all these... Yeah, absolutely knackered in bed, 6 o'clock.
I
don't know how they do it, though. I don't know how children manage to just keep going constantly like that, because they literally do not stop from the time they get up to the time they go to bed.
Little loves.
Little down,
right, Shang-a-Lang. Is it time after the break to chuck the chuggers? Their strong-arm tactics to make us part without cash were detailed in the Sunday papers, and several councils in the UK have drastically limited their activities, but charities are finding it tougher and tougher to raise funds. Should we be surprised if they have to resort to literally jumping up and down in the street to get our attention? 0207 173 5555 is the number you need. Your stories after these.